Hello YouTube, Shintigercurl here, that dude with the straw hat, bringing you yet another movie review. That's right, I'm trying this whole movie review thing out for myself, see if I can make it a frequent thing. I'm not going to review every new movie that comes out, just the ones that I personally have an interest in and want to watch. So, my last movie review was of course for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and I already gave you my thoughts on that one. If you want to see what my thoughts are, just check out the link in the video in one of the annotations I'll provide after I'm done recording this shit, so to understand my thoughts. But basically my thoughts were it was okay. It could have been better, but unfortunately it fell short in a lot of places to make it from it being fantastic, which it should have been. So now, if you couldn't tell by the title or by the thumbnail or the image you're currently looking at on your television, on your computer screen, or whatever medium you're picking it on, I will be reviewing probably one of the most anticipated movies of the year, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That's right. This is the third Captain America movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the second movie to be directed by former stuntmen and seemingly awesome directors Anthony and Joe Russo. And they're awesome because they directed another one of my all-time favorite comic book movies, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This one is a direct sequel to that one, as well as a direct sequel to Age of Ultron, another one of my favorites. So I'm going to give a slight summary of the movie. I'm not going to try to spoil things for you in case you haven't seen it. And I don't know, I'm not going to do a whole spoiler talk video because I don't want to tempt people with a video talking about the plot and what have you. So anyway, let's get to the plot anyway. The plot of Civil War, it's more based off the comic book crossover event of the same name, the Marvel event Civil War. I read it. It's pretty okay. There are a lot of callbacks to this and several other Marvel comic book events and storylines. There are so many, in fact, I can't really name them all, but I digress. So, a year has passed since the events in Sokovia in Age of Ultron, when Ultron turned an entire city into a lethal weapon, and the Avengers kind of had to blow it up. Now, the scene opens with a very kinetic scene of the Avengers, particularly Captain America, I believe Falcon, Black Widow, and their newest recruit, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, chasing down an old acquaintance of theirs, Martin Rumlow, aka Crossbones. You might remember him from the Winter Soldier, the dude that had a building drop on his head. He and his terroristic group are in Wakanda. There's Wakanda again, attempting to steal some biological weaponry from a military facility. The Avengers give chase, and inexorably an explosion happens and a bunch of people are killed. So the Avengers are called in back to their home base. And this is also where we get introduced to Tony Stark, as he's reintroducing some technology at a college I forget which. I have to rewatch the movie. I will rewatch the movie, by the way. So there's also a flashback between him where on the night of his parents dying in that car crash, and it kind of shows you how much he regrets not saying what he needed to say and reconciling with his father, Howard Stark, who was good friends with Captain America. And that just shows you that much regret that he has about that. So anyway, before he meets up with the rest of the Avengers, he gets met up with this woman who says that her son had been killed in Sokovia when Ultron decided to turn a small little town into a fucking weapon of mass destruction, and that she blames him. That kind of hits home where it is. So anyway, go up to the Avengers, who meet up at their headquarters. All the Avengers, well, not all of them. Hulk and Thor are noticeably absent from this. In fact, they make a comment about it. This harkens back to the comic to the comic event, the crossover event in which all the superheroes fought each other during Civil War, but Thor and Hulk were noticeably absent. Thor was in Asgard doing Asgard shit, and Hulk, well, he kind of got shot into space. Long story short, it's a long story, but anyway, they're approached by Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. That's right, General Ross from the Incredible Hulk movie, the one with Edward Norton. Makes his triumphant return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this time as a congressman or a senator, I believe. I think he's working with the State Department. I forgot what his official title is. But he says that the Avengers have left a lot of crazy shit in their wake. I mean, he shows images of the past couple of movies, but it's shot in a way that makes you believe they're not cutting and pasting images from the previous movies, but showing them from different perspectives. Like, in the first one is the Battle of New York, and it's shot from someone having a camera on the ground, and they see Hulk jumping all over the place, and then Hulk runs into a wall or a building, and it falls down on the person, presumably killing them. Then they show the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. during The Winter Soldier. Then they show Sokovia from Age of Ultron, and he's like, you guys, this can't happen. I know we appreciate everything you've done, but you've been in a lot. You've done a lot of bad shit, and collateral damage has to be accounted for. So he presents them with this thing called the Sokovia Accords, which puts the Avengers under direct oversight from a committee sponsored by the United Nations. Now, this automatically kind of splits the Avengers down the middle. As we see Rhodey and aka War Machine and Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, discussing this and butting heads with one another, talking about how this is not the way, or which one of them is right. And what I like about this, how they presented it, like, at first I went in going into this movie like a lot of people, probably siding with Cap because, well, Tony's kind of an asshole. But it's presented in the way the movie presents it is in such a way that you actually can understand both sides of the argument. Tony believes that they should be regulated, that they should be held accountable, that they just can't keep doing what they've been doing, and innocent people just becoming collateral damage. Cap, on the other hand, is like, well, if we become slaves to an oversight committee, they'll just use us whenever they want, and they'll send us to places we might not want to go, or stop us from going places that we might really want to go. So there's that. We also get an introduction to the Wakandan royal family, particularly King T'Chaka and his son T'Challa, the Black Panther, played by Bosun. I'll have to get to his name later when I introduce the cast. So there's an explosion at this meeting that they're having. T'Chaka is killed, and it's presumed that the Winter Soldier is the one responsible. And Cap and Falcon actually go in and try to talk him down, but he's like, I did not do this. So this results in another chase scene involving themselves and the German Special Forces, as well as T'Challa in his Black Panther suit. Yay! So Bucky gets captured, and Cap and his team are kind of taken into custody. They're not under arrest, they're just taken into custody. And he's like, and of course this causes more conflict between Cap and Iron Man, as they know that shit is going down, and they're trying to convince each other that their position is right and the other one's position is wrong. And it's just so interesting to watch as you see these two men who've been friends for all these years throughout these movies are so stubborn and so steadfast in their beliefs that it's literally coming to blows. So anyway, but there's another person behind the scenes kind of manipulating things to his advantage. What is it? It's very. I'm trying to word this in a way so that you guys don't get spoiled or what have you. But it gets to the point where Cap and his little crew are actively going against the law. They're actively becoming criminals, and it gets to the point where where General Ross is like, you need to bring them in. Either we bring them in, either you do it, Tony, or we do it. And Tony's like, give me a chance. You guys and your guns are not going to be able to take these guys in. Let me and my team do it. And so this kind of leads up into the moment that everyone's been waiting for, which is the big superhero showdown. Team Cap versus Team Iron Man. But first and foremost, let's get the cast out of the way. Of course, Chris Evans returns as Captain America. We have, of course, awesome as always, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark / Iron Man. Scarlett Johansson returns once again as the badass femme fatale Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. Sebastian Stan comes back as the tortured Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. Anthony Mack, I love Anthony Mack, as Sam Wilson, the Falcon. Don Cheadle as James Rhodey Rhodes, the War Machine. Jeremy Renner, or however you pronounce his name, I prefer Ratner, returns as Clint Barton, Hawkeye. Chadwick Boseman, I loved him in Get On Up as James Brown, but this time he returns as T'Challa, the Black Panther, who we've been very waiting for. Paul Bettany returns as The Vision. Elizabeth Olsen returns as Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. Paul Rudd makes his second outing as Scott Lang, the Ant-Man. Emily Van Camp, this is her second movie, comes out as Sharon Carter, aka Agent 13 from Winter Soldier, who's also Peggy Carter's niece. And Frank Grillo makes his return as Brock Rumlow, aka Crossbones. Of course, already mentioned William Hurt as Thunderbolts Ross. The villain of the movie is played by Daniel Bruhl as Helmut Zemo. And we also got some nice little smaller roles as Alfre Woolard, who plays Miriam Sharp, the mother of the citizen who was killed in Sokovia. It was also surprising, Martin Freeman. That's right, Bilbo Baggins is in this movie as Everett K. Ross, member of the Joint Terrorism Center Task Force. And most prominent of all, Tom Holland as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. And joining him is surprisingly a young-looking Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. Still looks good after all these years. So anyway, basically, what I'm just going this off the dome. So I'll just talk about the stuff that I liked about this movie. I like the characterizations and the interactions with this. I can't help but this is gonna come as no surprise. I mean, I have to talk about this because it's necessary. But you could see that there are parallels between Civil War and Dawn of Justice. What I mean is both are movies that show two superheroes who have vastly different views come into both political and physical conflict with one another. All of it stemming around how much control and how much responsibility should superheroes have in doing their jobs. And both of them try to do something with a similar regard. But unfortunately, Captain America succeeds in this, not because it also has a better director, but because the characterizations are a lot better. You can see where both sides are coming from. So it's when people say, hey, Sin, what side are you on, Team Cap or Team Iron Man? And I can't really say after seeing this movie, because both sides are presented in such a way that you understand what both sides are coming from. I understand what Cap means when he says that he doesn't want the Avengers to become tools of governments. And I can understand what Tony means when he says that they need to have some kind of responsibility, some kind of oversight, so that stuff like the Battle of New York and the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Sokovia doesn't happen again. I got to talk about Mr. Bosen's role as T'Challa. T'Challa comes off as an absolute badass in this film, and he was right. He was the right actor to do it. He portrays that savage nobility that he has as the King of Wakanda, and he absolutely does a lot of great, phenomenal fight scenes, and you can understand what he's going through. I mean, he does lose his father in this movie. Sebastian Stan returns as the Winter Soldier. We didn't get much characterization from it. This is his third movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the first being the first Avenger and the second one being in... I'll just put that together. He's been in all three Captain America movies. So anyway, you see him trying to come to grips with the fact that for the last 70 so years, his mind has been just jacked, and he's been a tool of Hydra, and that he's been used to do their dirty work. They freeze him, and then they bring him out to do their dirty work. And you can understand, there's some scenes where he just shows a lot of regret over everything that he's done. He realizes that he hasn't never been in control of himself, but that doesn't mean he doesn't do it, and he has a lot of guilt over that. So there's that. Scarlett Johansson, badass as always. Wish she'd had a movie by now. Sam Wilson as the Falcon. Sam Wilson, the Falcon, of course, is one of Cap's closest friends. He has a lot of close friends, but Sam is that dude that always had his back. I mean, from the very jump, from Winter Soldier onward, Sam always had Cap's back, and that showed in this one, as he was even willing to go to prison to keep Cap on his mission, which I'll get into later. Don Cheadle, entertaining as always as War Machine / Rhodey. I mean, and he really gets fucked up in this one. I'm not going to say what happens to him, but yeah, he kind of gets fucked up. Hawkeye is underused, but I can understand where they're coming from because we already know as much as we know about Hawkeye. I mean, in this point in the movie, in this particular movie, Hawkeye's retired, but he comes out of retirement just to help Cap. Paul Bettany, I loved him as Jarvis, as the voice of Jarvis, and I loved him as the Vision. He brings a new spin on the character, if that makes sense. He brings a new kind of humanity, similar to in the way that James Spader did with Ultron. I love Ultron. Sue me. He brings a sort of a nuanced humanity, like a man who is just trying to find his place in the world. Like, he sees humanity, but also, like, he makes a comment towards the beginning of the movie when the Sokovia Accords are enacted, or kind of enacted, and he's like, you guys gotta understand, the number of superpowered vigilantes has risen since Tony came out as Iron Man. But so have been the number of super-powered criminals. It's escalation, and it will only breed catastrophe. There's also his budding romance, if you want to call that, with the Scarlet Witch, which is pretty nice to see on the silver screen, because as everyone who reads the comics know, Vision and Scarlet Witch were actually an item. They actually got married in the comics, but they kind of broke up when Wanda went kind of nuts. And it shows them connecting. And there's a point after the battle where Vision is cradling her in his arms, and he whispers to her, "I'm sorry," and she whispers back, "I'm sorry too." Like, they're on opposite sides of this conflict, and they have to fight each other, and I know that tears them apart inside. This is what I liked about this battle. Unlike in Dawn of Justice, where we see Batman and Superman battle each other, but there's no real reason given to why they battle each other. In this one, we have a reason why these guys are fighting, and it feels almost horrible to see them fight each other, because they know they're just saying that their side is right, and they wish they couldn't fight each other, but they have to anyway. Like, there's a scene where Widow is fighting Hawkeye, and she asks, "Are we still gonna be friends after this?" Like, that little thing. That's just good. It was great to see Scott Lang again. I loved Ant-Man the movie. I really should have seen it more. And he has some pretty cool scenes of him beating Captain America, and has some pretty cool fight moments. Everybody in this movie has amazing moments. And Ant-Man does this one thing. I'm not going to spoil what. You probably already been spoiled, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. He does something that's awesome in the movie, and when I saw it, I'm like, yeah. So yeah, that's that. That happens. I liked Sharon Carter. I liked that they expanded her role in this one, and she gives a speech. Well, slight spoiler warning. Peggy dies in this movie. Now, don't worry. It's not because someone murdered her or nothing. She just dies peacefully in his sleep. And this is actually very telling for Cap, because outside of Bucky, Peggy was his only connection to the life that he had before he went into the ice. And for her to, and he was a pallbearer at her funeral. And Sharon gets up there and she gives this amazing speech, and it's almost word for word a speech that Cap gave Spider-Man when Spider-Man was wondering what he should do. And I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. I love that speech. That's one of my favorite Captain America speeches of all time, and I'm glad that they got it in here. And also they actually expanded on the potential romance between her and Cap. Angry Joe didn't understand who she was, but I'll tell you right now, Sharon Carter, Agent 13, is actually not only a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., but Cap's longtime girlfriend. I mean, they've been dating for years. And when you see that, remember that famous shot of after Civil War, the Civil War comic, where Captain America is bleeding to death on the courthouse steps, and there's a blonde-haired woman like cradling his head. That's Sharon. That's his girlfriend. So I'm glad that they expanded on her. But you want me to talk about the who, Spider-Man. Now, I have to say, I've been a fan of Spider-Man's for most of my life. My closet is full of Spider-Man comic books, including the Black issue, the one that was printed in honor of 9/11. I have a lot of his comics. I don't have the Clone Wars, thank God, the Clone Saga. I don't have that shit. I wouldn't put that in my closet. So anyway, and I've seen a lot of different interpretations of Spider-Man. Some I liked. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you, James Garfield. I liked you as Spider-Man, as well as Tobey Maguire. I like the 90s animated Spider-Man, who was awesome. Some I didn't like. I'm looking at you, Ultimate Spider-Man. Deadpool wannabe. But I'm going to go on record and say this. Tom Holland as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, may be the best incarnation of the character we have seen yet. He is a teenager. And he lives with his Aunt May. He's a dumpster diver. He has an old ass computer, like from the 90s or what have you, and he has to dumpster dive for all of his equipment. He looks the part of this scrawny little kid who just happened to have his powers. By the time this movie rolls around, Spider-Man had only been active for like 6 months, so he's still relatively new. And then Tony comes in and he's like, I want you to help me take in Captain America. And we actually see some of his suits. We actually see his Spider-Man suit, which is just a piece of crap. And when we see him in the big battle, he totally acts like Spider-Man should, at least in this regard, because he has the quips, he has the jokes. We actually see him act intelligently and cunningly. We see the nerd, but we also see Spider-Man, and all the other guys are talking about him like, we usually don't talk this much. Like, he's the first. This is his first time ever, so he struck that perfect balance of Peter Parker, which Maguire landed, and Spider-Man, which Garfield landed. He is the melding of these two, and he comes together so magnificently. And he is just fanboying out during this whole battle. I mean, he is this. He comes off very believable because he's just this kid surrounded by all these legendary heroes and superpowered beings, and he comes off so believable, and it just amazes me. So, Tom Holland, I cannot wait for Spider-Man: Homecoming. I cannot wait. So, as for the villain of this particular movie, Daniel Bruhl is Helmut Zemo. Now, for those of you who probably watched the Avengers animated series, Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, or in the modern case, Avengers Assemble, know that Helmut Zemo is actually a high-ranking member of Hydra. They don't do this in this movie. He's actually a Slovakian military officer who was a terrorist, who turns terrorist because he's obsessed with defeating the Avengers. He has virtually nothing to do with Hydra, and I like that. I like the fact that he's just doing this out of revenge, because he wants to tear the Avengers apart for what happened to his family. And it's so refreshing. He's just manipulating all these people, all this stuff behind the scenes, just so the Avengers would tear themselves apart. I'm not going to spoil too much about what he does or how he does it, but I got to say, he's getting there up on my list of my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe villains, up there with the likes of Ultron and Wilson Fisk. Now, for those of you, and I know what you're saying, what about Purple Man? I haven't seen Jessica Jones yet. Can't judge on a character I haven't seen yet. I'll get to that when I get to it. Now, there's something in the end. There's a twist that happens, and it just kind of hits you in the gut. And I know I'm going to give it away. You probably have already figured it out, so you probably someone spoiled it, but I'm not going to give it away. It's just an added bonus of just another emotional part of this movie that just punches you right in the fucking gut. Ugh. And it's just wow. It's just terrible, but it gets all the emotional. It gets the emotion right when it needs to be emotional and tragic. You get the tragedy, and when the excitement is up, you get the excitement. You get the high stakes of it all. So I'm just gonna leave leave those spoilers behind, just so you don't so you don't get too spoiled by it. Okay, if that makes sense. But my overall rating, the Russos once again hit it out of the park with Civil War. This hit all the right notes. This is probably the best superhero movie yet. I say yet because there's still a lot of superhero movies coming out. This is probably the best one yet. It gets all the notes right. The build up for the big battle between the two sides, you can sympathize with both sides, especially that ending, and you genuinely feel like things have changed so dramatically. It just seemed like that like the Russos understand how comic book movies are supposed to be presented, and they done it. They always seem to be able to raise the stakes. Like in the Winter Soldier, we saw S.H.I.E.L.D. fall. We saw it being taken apart from the inside thanks to Hydra. So the things have changed in Civil War. I'm not going to say what has changed, but things have changed, and I doubt they could ever go back to. It's going to take a lot to get things back to the way they were, or somewhat semblance of normalcy. So I'm very appreciative of this movie. I love it. I'm gonna watch it again. Like if you like Dawn of Justice, good for you. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but for those of you out there who watched Dawn of Justice and felt that they made some missteps, a lot of missteps, like myself, that could have been I'll just say like this: Civil War is what Dawn of Justice was supposed to be, instead of what we got. This was an amazing, amazing movie. I want to watch it again. If you haven't watched it, please go out and do so. This movie will blow your mind, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is up there along with Civil War, along with Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron is my all-time favorite comic book movies and my all-time favorite Marvel movies. So hopefully this review was helpful in helping you decide whether or not you wanted to watch Civil War. Go out and do it. It's awesome. Fight scenes. Do it. So yeah, that is my review of Captain America: Civil War. If you like what you've heard, link, comment, subscribe below. Got any questions, comments, or hey, if you've seen Captain America: Civil War, what was your favorite part of the movie? What was your favorite fight scene? What was your favorite line or moment that just made you go, let me know in the comments below. So, anyway, until next time, this has been Shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat.